Welcome back to the Beauty Lab podcast. I am your host, Velia, and this is my co-host, Monina. And today we have the very special pleasure of interviewing Aaron Ramson. Aaron is a brewer and a fermentation expert. He's been a brewer and a brewery manager for over a decade and owns a hot sauce brand called Fireface Hot Sauce. But most importantly, he's my husband. Cue the music. Welcome, Aaron. Thank you so much for being here and talking to us about the health benefits of fermented foods. So if you could tell us a little bit about how you got started in your career of fermentation, that would be a great place to start.
Well, thank you, ladies, for having me. I began fermenting about 20 years ago when I brewed my first batch of beer. It was initially a way to get into home brewing as a hobby and a way to save money instead of spending all this money on expensive craft beer. I could just do it myself for fun at home. And after that started my interest in also brewing kombuchas, making sauerkrauts and kimchis, and that's led me through this journey of discovering the benefits of fermented foods and how it's been beneficial for my own gut health.
Oh, that's awesome. I am so excited about this topic because it does encapsulate so many different parts of your health. Mm-hmm. But what I want to know, and my husband's really excited to hear about this, is what makes a food fermented to begin with? Can you explain the process?
Absolutely. A food's fermented after it's gone through a metabolic process that transforms the sugars and starches into acids, gases, or alcohol using microorganisms such as bacteria, yeasts, and even molds. This process not only enhances the flavor, texture, and nutritional value of foods, but also extends their shelf life.
Okay, so what kinds of foods can actually be fermented?
So many kinds. Traditionally, dairies, such as, think of yogurt as a fermented product, kefir, sour cream, even cheeses. Vegetables such as sauerkraut and kimchi, pickled and fermented carrots, grains. Now, beer is actually a fermented grain. Certain types of cereals can also be fermented. Fruits are fermented into wines, ciders, and fermented fruit preserves. Legumes are fermented into tempeh and miso. Soy products are created, such as tofu and soy sauce. And meat and fish can also be fermented into products like salami, pepperoni, and fish sauces.
You're one that loves the fish sauce, right, Monina?
We were just talking about that. It's amazing because you forget what is actually considered fermented. Like for some people, you probably were surprised to hear yogurt. But yeah, that's a fermented food. Being Filipino, we have something, basically a fish sauce called patis. So all you Filipinos out there know what I'm talking about. That is fermented, yeah?
Absolutely.
What about
yes.
garum? Is garum fermented?
Garum is like an ancient precursor to sauces such as patis, which are popular today with cultures that have evolved from, I guess, Latin and Spanish.
And garum, for those of you who don't know what garum is, it's pretty foul. It's like, it's fermented fish. It's like salted fish. Is it originally from
ancient Rome?
Okay, ancient Rome, yeah. And sardines? What is, do you remember what the fish is?
Several different fishes were used in the production.
And it's like over time, you put the bones in everything.
Salt can be used to help with lactic fermentation, and that's kind of the process that you're undergoing when you ferment meat, vegetables.
And you were saying that patis or fermented fish was like kind of the precursor to other kinds of things, right?
Well, garum.
Yeah. Garum. And was that Worcestershire sauce?
Worcestershire. Yeah.
It's always a fun one to
I
say.
know. Everyone says it different. Everyone's right.
W sauce, as some
the
people
W
choose
sauce.
to call it, also contains fermented anchovies and fermented fish sauce.
Okay. Yeah, I thought there was some kind of like relation there.
Wait, so all those different types of sauces, soy sauce, I'm surprised. I did not know that. So soy sauce, the garum, the patis, that's all considered fermented foods.
Fermented foods have a very particular flavor, I guess you could describe it as earthy, umami. There's also a twang, I suppose, and that is a byproduct of the lactic fermentation that occurs.
Got it. Okay, well then, moving on to our next question then, can you please tell us what are the health benefits to eating fermented foods or incorporating that into your diet?
It's the ingestion of the microorganisms and the microbacteria that exist in fermented foods is where the health benefits really come from. And there are so many of them, some specific to women's health. Improved digestion is a big one that can come from eating fermented foods, or the idea that fermented foods are rich in probiotics, which can enhance gut health by balancing your microbiota.
Microbiota?
Microbiota, yes. I've heard this.
Yeah,
I've heard
yeah.
yes, microbiota.
Fermentation boosts the bioavailability of vitamins and minerals, which leads to increased nutrient absorption by the foods you eat.
Got it. Wow.
A healthy gut biome supports immune function and boosts the immune system. My gosh, I could keep going. Mental health support is one that's widely touted. Absolutely.
Okay.
Probiotics may help reduce anxiety and depression.
Sure.
Specifically for women, fermented foods can support hormonal health by aiding digestion and promoting a healthy gut microbiome.
So overall, health benefit is because of the probiotics that come from the fermented foods.
Absolutely.
That's basically what we're looking at. Okay.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so I know that in skincare and in hair care, they use probiotics, in a topical way. Of course, it's always recommended that you consume the probiotics for overall health. But if you suffer with like a fungal condition like dandruff, there are probiotic shampoos that you could actually buy and use. I know there's some Korean brands that make them. I don't know of any American brands. I'm sure they're out there. I have not, the big brands that you see now in Ulta, Sephora, and our beauty supplies. I have never seen with probiotic ingredients, but I know they exist. So I know that they have been starting to use probiotics in skincare and in hair care, and even for your pets. They have probiotic shampoos for your dogs or cats to try to eliminate the fungus and a lot of times when your dog's our dog licks constantly. And anyways, what do you know, Monina, about the benefits of probiotics for skincare specifically?
Yeah, of course, for probiotics, for skincare, and also for gut health, because we always talk about how your gut health is a lot of times the reason why you have a lot of skin issues and hair issues, right? Is always inside. So when we're talking about prebiotics, absolutely having prebiotics in skincare and also in supplements for hair, skin, and nails is really, really beneficial. Mainly if it's in skincare, it's to help address the skin barrier. You hear the flora in the gut, right? You also have flora in the skin. So you also have a microbiome in the skin. And so obviously having probiotics topically can also help with preventing any issues with skincare barrier issues.
Absolutely.
Right? Wow. So yeah. So internally and externally, probiotics are so important.
Yeah.
Now you also just mentioned prebiotics. Did you mean to say prebiotics or did you mean to say probiotics?
Because actually there's both. There's prebiotics and probiotics. Do we have prebiotics as well as probiotics in fermented foods? Because I know with skincare we're looking at both.
The prebiotic is kind of the food that the probiotic feeds on and uses to grow.
That's right. Okay.
Like fiber. Fiber is a prebiotic.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Makes sense. I meant probiotic, not prebiotic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, they're using prebiotics?
Yeah, but you're right. It's a precursor, right? That's like what feeds on it. Okay. Yeah. But in skincare, it'd be probiotics. I misspoke. All right.
Okay, so if you are enjoying this episode so far, please pause if you're listening and give us a review, or if you're watching, please subscribe, like, share, all of the things. Okay, Aaron, so now I know that you, because you're my husband, you do a lot of hobby sort of fermenting. Like not everything you ferment is a career thing. So can you talk actually a little bit about the process? Because most people have no idea how beer is made. Would you kind of walk us through how it goes from grains to beer?
Yeah, with beer in particular, you create a wort, and the wort is it's a sugar solution. You get that by soaking the grains. It's usually barley, but also cereal grains like rice, corn, and wheat are also commonly used in the beer I create. Once you create a solution of broken down starches and sugars, we will typically heat that to kill off any harmful bacteria, and then we can, once cooled, inoculate it with a strain of specifically selected yeast.
Okay.
This yeast will feed upon the sugars and starches and release alcohol and gases as a byproduct. The yeast is what is considered the probiotic in this case.
Okay.
Yeah. So I work for an independent beer manufacturer. We don't pasteurize our product. So all of our beers are inoculated with living yeast that you consume when you drink.
Okay, so then the grains, tell me if I have this right, because I've actually made beer with you before, but I always I never quite get how everything works scientifically. So, right, so the grains, barley, rice, etc., they are boiled, right?
Yes, yeah. You soak them almost like a tea.
Okay.
And you do that for an extended amount of time, and that's what kind of breaks down the sugars. The walls are kind of broken down. The starches are released into more simplified sugars that the yeast can consume.
Okay, and then you add the yeast, second step, or maybe it's the 10th step, but second step in the next step would be to add the yeast, and the yeast is what goes in and it just like eats up all the sugars from that solution you just created from the grains.
That's right.
And then it turns that into the alcohol.
Yeah, and that process of fermentation, the byproduct is ethanol alcohol as well as carbon dioxide.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
So is that also kind of similar to how they make kombucha then?
Yes.
Kind of the same process almost?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's basically the substrate in which the probiotics thrive and they consume sugars. With kombucha, you can make a healthful probiotic-filled kombucha that's not highly alcoholic. You can also make a highly alcoholic kombucha by giving the microorganisms more sugars and starches to consume.
Oh, I didn't know kombucha could be alcoholic. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
Interesting. Okay, I've never tried that kind before. well, on that note, then would you recommend people fermenting their own food at home?
Yes, absolutely. Kimchi, sauerkraut, and simple fermented vegetables are really easy to do at home. You don't need a laboratory setting. You don't need what's considered sterilization, but you do need a level of sanitation. You want your products to be clean, just washed. And because it's like with the vegetables you use, you do rely on the naturally occurring yeast that live on the skin of the vegetables to grow and do the fermentation.
Okay, and I don't know if you can answer this, but why does kimchi smell so bad, but it tastes so good? I mean, I don't get it. It's like you open that jar and you're just like, whoa, I'm gonna put that in my mouth, but then it tastes so good. I just don't understand.
I think that it's a lot of the compounds that are released during fermentation are volatile.
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Like with beer, say during lager production, compounds like sulfur are released. So it's really common to have this aroma of like eggs, boiled eggs coming from
exactly.
your fermenting lager.
Yeah. Okay. But then when you taste it, it tastes fine.
Oh yeah. A lot of those compounds, they're an aroma only. They're not
it's
in
like a gas release or something, right? Yeah. Okay, got it.
Yeah, because kimchi is fermented cabbage.
Yeah, it's fermented cabbage.
Cabbage is known to stink.
That's true. Like if you boil that or broccoli, right? They stink, but it doesn't taste like what it smells, which is to me so interesting. But
Yeah. Okay, so Aaron, I have a question. So we were actually able to send this topic out to our listeners and have them ask questions about it before you came. So we did grab a question from a listener. So this is from Danielle from Santa Cruz. And she wants to know what the difference between fermenting and pickling is.
Certainly, both are food preservation methods, but they differ in their processes and outcome. Pickling involves soaking the food in vinegar or brine, and it uses acidity for preservation. Flavor-wise, pickled foods are considered sharp, tangy, whereas fermentation, like I mentioned earlier, it relies on microorganisms to convert the sugars into acids, gases, or alcohol. And it typically takes longer, and it develops much more complex flavors than pickling. Pickling is seen as a little more simplistic than fermentation, and you do develop those. It can be tangy, but also umami and earthy flavors that come from fermentation.
Okay. So I know we already asked if you recommend that people ferment their foods at home, but is there any advice you can give them? Like how to learn how to do that safely, because you talked about molds and bacterias and those two words together, just alone, I guess I should say, are kind of intimidating. Like when you're talking about, because I've watched like you ferment peppers at home to make your hot sauces, and there's like gases released and there's like cloudiness and it doesn't look so pretty, but it doesn't look moldy. But to an untrained eye, how can you best sort of guide somebody to know how to safely ferment foods at home?
Well, there are a plethora of resources online that can help anyone who's interested in starting to ferment, and it can be an intimidating process. You can do it wrong, and you can create harmful mold. Now, how to identify the difference between ferment versus a harmful mold can be difficult to someone who's untrained, but let's just say social media, like Facebook, there are tons of Facebook groups dedicated just for helping beginners learn how to ferment. YouTube is probably my favorite. Gosh, I guess you could call YouTube social media these days, the way it's kind of modeled and changed itself. But YouTube is such a fantastic resource for finding content creators who break down the process, explain it beginning to end, and you could find people that are just there to give you a quick how-to, and then you can find people who are more scientifically minded, who are there to explain every step of the process. And either way, they'll stress to you the things that you need to consider and the things to look out for if you're starting to want to ferment your own foods at home.
Okay. Yeah.
Quick question. So if someone wanted to start fermenting foods at home, is there like a certain equipment? Is there a lot of, or is it mainly just the foods itself and the yeast or what have you? Or is there like actual tools that you're going to need to purchase?
A lot of times you can have a simple vessel like a glass jar is the easiest, most common fermenting vessel that most people have. There's also crock vessels made out of clay for people that want to, I guess, a more grounding and earthy experience.
More of a spiritual experience.
Does it change the taste based on the vessel that you're fermenting in, or not really?
Anecdotally, some people may say yes, but it doesn't really. Yeah, you just want something that won't react and cause harm to the bacteria that you're trying to cultivate.
Got it. All right. Well, awesome. I do have one other question that just came off the top of my head. Is there anyone that you would say maybe shouldn't, or maybe talk to their doctor to first, or if they're on certain medications? I'm not sure. Like, is there any scenario where you would say maybe not eat fermented foods? What would you say to them?
Yes. Now, fermented foods are very beneficial, but you have to remember that a lot of these foods are things that people can have sensitivities and allergies to.
That's what I was saying. I was thinking, because everything from yogurt to cabbage, like there's so many things that people already may have maybe an allergy to, or may cause other issues. So yeah, that's why I wanted to know that.
That's right. Consuming foods like a fermented yogurt or kefir or sour cream or cheese that will still cause the same food sensitivities you would normally have if you were sensitive to lactose. And there are people that actually say like fermented foods can interfere with certain medications. A lot of fermented foods use salt to kind of help your microbacteria to thrive while keeping harmful bacteria from colonizing. So a lot of fermented foods can be higher in sodium, which is a concern for some people.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Good to know. So just on that note then, make sure, guys, just like anytime that we recommend things here, if you have other underlying conditions or we recommend products, please always get advice from your primary care doctor, your esthetician, or even your dermatologist or your hair care person, just to make sure that there's nothing we're recommending that might cause some kind of contraindication to your underlying issues. So I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, was there anything else that you wanted to add, or did you have any other questions?
Just to kind of recap, fermented foods can be, if you're not sensitive to X, Y, and Z, can be very beneficial to your health, can be very beneficial to your gut health, your skin health, your scalp health. And again, if you are allergic to cabbage, don't eat kimchi.
Exactly.
Did you have anything to add?
No.
All right. Well, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you both for having me.
This was really fun.
So educational. Really appreciate it. Well, thanks again for joining us week in and week out. We really appreciate you tuning in. Hope you learned a lot today. My name's Monina.
I'm Velia.
And I'm Aaron.
Until next time.
Keep experimenting with your gut health routine. What makes a food fermented? A food is fermented after it has gone through a metabolic process that transforms sugars and starches into acids, gases, and alcohol using microorganisms such as bacteria, yeast, and molds. This process not only enhances the flavor, texture, and nutritional value of foods, but also extends their shelf life.
Red Bull, he gives you wings.
Yeah.
You don't need that.
Ready?
Yeah.
Big smile.